Hello and welcome to Kingdom News. This is the spotlight portion of the show, and I am so excited about my guest for this week. You know how you meet some people and you just meet them, but yet there's this connection and you're just like amazed by who they are and all that they do. And so that is my guest today. When I tell you she's in every single area and interest that I have. She is a purpose pusher. She is just a phenomenal woman of God. And I can't wait for her to share some nuggets and all the things that she's doing to be a blessing to the kingdom. So, welcome this week's guest, Miss Karen Cherry, to the show.
Thank you, Gwen, for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. So, prior to us starting, I was saying there's so much you could talk about. There's so many different directions that we could go in with this interview, but we kind of narrowed it down. So, let's just start with you telling us just a little bit. Just give us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Karen Cherry. They call me the Butts in the Seat Queen, mainly because I've been creating events and conferences for over 20 plus years, probably closer to 30 than 20. But I'm actually the co-founder and director of Success Women's Conference. We're in our eighth year this year, where we had over 17,000 virtually, 1,500 in person in Biloxi, Mississippi. I am the creator and producer of Level Up Summit and Power Up Summit. Both of those are my conferences that I host every year, mostly virtual, but there'll be a little hybrid coming up with the ones we're doing this year. And I'm also co-owner of PR and Home Care. It's our 25th year. My husband and I have been running our home care business. I've been in healthcare for 35 years. And I also do book anthologies. Right now, I'm getting ready to release Trailblazers Who Lead, and you'll hear about my upcoming one, Undefeated, 100 Women Sharing Secrets of Winning.
Whew, listen, I'm tired just listening to all of that. My goodness, that takes a lot of energy and a lot of skill to be able to manage all of that and to manage it well. And I've been able to be a part of what you are doing recently, and I can tell you they do an amazing job. She does an amazing job. So tell me, let's just start briefly with the home care business because I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So I always like to get, a little insight about how people went into their business, and 25 years in any business is a major accomplishment. So tell us a little bit about that and how that all got started.
So our home care business, we actually started off initially, we were in the staffing side. Both my husband and I are our backgrounds in occupational therapy. And just a brief story about that. We had somebody that my husband took care in the nursing home when we were working there. And the lady asked us to take care of her husband at home. The funny thing is that what she offered us, which was a reasonable offer, but we were just making like triple times more than that at the time. So we were thinking, yeah, we're gonna have to pass. So she offered both of us a job. Well, sometimes God is telling you something, right? And you just think you have the right answer. So literally, I would say within a few months from there, we left that job and started doing our home care stuff. And we were staffing at the time for left and started doing that part-time while we were still working for other companies. And then, of course, when the bottom falls out, literally the bottom fell out of all the fields of therapy or rehab. And so everybody was laid off. And so my husband and I, we looked at each other and he was like, well, what are we doing? And I was like, I guess we're going to do that home care business. So we did. And so the same facility that we worked in, where that lady asked us, that's where one of our first 24-hour clients came from as well. So it was just like God was like, well, just trying to give you a heads up. But since you didn't listen, now you know. And so here we are 25 years later, working in it. But I've been in healthcare for a long, long time. So my husband and I have worked together, not just in our business, but even pre this, after he got out of the military, we just kind of always been on this in the same facility or same company. So it's been fun. We bounce stuff off each other. We've been married 36 years this year. So it's a journey.
Oh yes, I know. I listen, something else. I didn't realize that the business was with your husband. So something else that I can relate to, because two of my businesses are also with my husband. We don't have 36 years in, we'll have 20 years in this year. And I can tell you, being married and being partners can be quite challenging at times. Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
listen, there's nothing like being able to do the business with your spouse, but it definitely has its challenges when there is a
Yeah.
disagreement.
Yeah.
You have to be able to kind of separate, okay, we're in business mode now, or we're in husband and wife mode. Yeah, it definitely takes some skill to be able to do that. And to be able to do it for 25 years, I just congratulate you on that. That is pretty amazing. So you're in this home care business, and obviously 25 years is going well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then how do you transition into this event planning and these conferences?
so I actually started doing events when I worked for the chaplain in Germany. And so he was just one of those kind of unusual chaplain colonel who worked with the general. And so he was big on bringing the community and the community together with the military. And so I, little secretary at the time, was tasked with putting together, something for Christmas and all this other stuff. So it actually worked out because I learned about protocols and itineraries, genders, and all that kind of stuff. And for me, I found that it was fun. And so when I came back to my hometown, Mississippi, about 20 some years ago, probably about 27 years ago, one of the things I learned is it doesn't matter if you're from here, you know, really you have to find a way for people to get who you are and what you provide, and just speaking it and introducing yourself. Sometimes it's a slower process. So I find that getting on boards, working and helping other people plan their stuff and create things. I like creating. I love ideas. And so it's actually probably more a gift. Proverbs 18:16 says, if you walk in your gifts, I'm summarizing y'all, but if you work in your gifts, God will seat you at the table of great men. And so that basically says you're going to make money off of what he gave you from birth. Everybody has gifts. It's just that you have to be willing to own it and step up and work in it. Don't let a job crush your gifts. And so so I went from there. I've been way before success. I started planning things for seniors. I've done senior expos where we've had over 2,000 people. We actually had the TV station set up at the expo as well. We've had major giveaways and all type of stuff at those events, senior half fairs. Then I started planning a conference called RIGHT, Resource Information and Planning for the Elderly. And a friend of mine, we looked at each other and we're like, we need to get to the caregivers. So what do? You create an event. So we created a caregiver conference, and we had over 600 people for about 6 years. I turned that into a guide. RIGHT Guide is what we call it. And then I turned it into a TV show. as well. So really, for me, I realize what I see, if there's a need, then I can feed off of that need and really bring it to life. We did a conference with my first lady with Family of Faith, and she wanted her, actually somebody else brought the vision about Blessed Girls Rock. And so with that, they were like, well, Kern should do it. And I'm like, okay, well, I can plan events. So me and actually one of my other friends and partner who now runs the Gulf Coast Gospel Music Award, Lakeisha Cotton, we were actually chairing that for years. And we had almost 500 plus people on a regular. We had Deborah, what is it? I'm thinking, what's her name? Anyway, we've had Vicky Winans, Vicky Yohe. We also had Deborah Martin, and then Dr. Cheryl Wood was one of our last speakers that came to that conference. So for me, going into Success, where our first conference that we ever hosted was over 540 people, for me, that's just a normal number for me. So growing and accelerating, it was just for me important that we fulfilled the need, the call, what people wanted. And so even with Success, the women we want a conference, not another event, not another meeting. They were saying they needed to get fed. And so me and my partner actually created Success out of what we saw was a need, that people needed more information so they can take the leap. So they needed to be empowered. They needed to be inspired, and they certainly needed to connect to other women. So that's kind of me. I've been on many boards, still on several boards, and I enjoy doing it. I just realized that's a gift that God has bestowed upon me.
Yes, it is absolutely a gift. People don't realize all that's involved in event planning. Oftentimes people think, you know what, well, I know a few people and I have access to this venue. So let me go ahead and plan this event. And then they begin the process, and the day comes and they realize that they did not pay attention to detail. And almost half of the stuff that needed to take place or be done was not done. So it is definitely a skill. It is definitely a gift. And the scripture that I always like to refer to is that, your gifts will make room for you.
Yes.
Yes, your gifts will make room for you, but you have to be able to be willing to operate in them. So if we're not willing to operate in them, that's when we find ourselves stuck and in situations that we don't have to be in, because God has given us these talents and these gifts and these abilities, but we're too scared to move forward in it. And so that's the issue. It's not that we're not going to all do the same thing or at the same level, but everybody has something that they've been gifted to do. And not only have they been gifted to do something, there's something in them that someone has specifically been assigned to them for that gifting. And so we just have to be willing to get out of our comfort zone and move in it. So you mentioned Success Women's Conference, and I think I heard about it maybe a year or two ago. I started hearing a little bit about it. What impressed me about it was what you said. It wasn't just an event. It was more than an event. And so when you said that, I thought about my conference that I was doing called the Transformation Experience. It was based on the fact that people needed more. They needed more than an opportunity to just come together and eat and talk and socialize. They needed to be educated. They needed to be empowered. They needed to be inspired. And they needed to make connections outside of their circle that they had become so accustomed to. And so I believe that Success Women's Conference does all of that. and so much more. So when you started the Success Women's Conference, kind of what were some of the things that you thought like were non-negotiables that you're like, okay, we must provide this because we have to stand out and we have to be different and provide exactly what it is that the women are looking for.
So I think for us, mainly, we wanted to make sure that when the women came, that they felt like there was something there for them, not just for, one of my friends told me, and because she had never come to the event, that she thought it was for certain women, like, maybe a corporate woman and, it had to be high up. And then when she finally came, which was the year prior to COVID, she realized, she was like, oh man, I should have been coming to this event. I'm like, yes, it's for you. It's for wherever you are in your walk of life. So you may be sitting on the fence thinking, I don't know how to start this business. I don't even know how to promote it. Or maybe you're having issues promoting. Maybe you need that boost to just say, I'm just gonna do it. Because that's my belief. The biggest thing about women is like we overanalyze everything, right? We just got to break it down some more, and then break it down one more time before we launch it. Where the men are like, just do it already. And I'm like, yes, that is the mindset that we have to have. I used to be a feet first person, Gwen. I'm like, did you say event? Oh, yeah, what we can do is sit down, we do this, that, and this, and this, and that. Right here, pull from here, boom, we got it. But that's because it's a gifting that I have, right? And so I can actually walk in, and especially I've been doing it so long. But what we found were there were a lot of women that were walking afraid, right? And they were just living in fear. So actually the year Cheryl came, I was looking around and she was, giving her presentation, she's all power. And so, and the people were just like, I can just do this. I really think I can fly. And I'm like, wow, that's just Cheryl. Y'all do know that, right? This is Cheryl. But we also realized that there were a lot of Christian women that were in the audience. And we didn't know. We had no idea. We had been doing the conference for several years. And some of the people, I'm like, I didn't know she was Christian. I just, I know her from being out in the corporate world or attending events and stuff. But we found out that they were so hungry and that they just needed to be around other like-minded women, not walking in the same career, but like-minded women. And so they were able to take that energy and feed off of it. And many people started their own company. I heard several that expanded their business. Many of them just said, you know what, I've been thinking about speaking, but I hadn't thought, but now I'm going to look at that now. It was to encourage and empower just you women to realize you don't have to wait. There are other people that feel the same way you do. You just need to leap. Stop sitting on it. One lady said in the circle one day, it was Cheryl and several other people sitting in this circle, and she said she started the conversation with, I've been sitting on this idea for 10 years. I said, hold up, Cheryl, can I take this? I said, I can answer this for you. I said, if you've been sitting on that for 10 years, then the answer is you need to just do it. Absolutely. Right? Because in 10 years, you've already worked out every scenario that could happen. And so now you just need to implement to get started, because that's what and it's fear. What people have to recognize is that you're doing more talking about faith than you're actually walking in it. God is not the God of fear. And so if you ask him, if you just sit down and say, Lord, is this what you would have me do? Now, I'm telling you now, when you ask that question, please have your ducks in order, because he gives straight answers, right? So if you say, God, am I supposed to be on this job? Oh, okay, you better be ready to pack your bags if you're not supposed to be on that job, because he will literally show you the door. It happened to me already.
I just started to say, did you know my testimony and my story? Because that is exactly it. When I asked the question, when I started having medical issues, well, God, am I not supposed to be on this job? And then within a year, I was no longer on the job. So absolutely. And
Gwen, I'll give you one better. I had the supervisor over me complain because I left earlier than she thought I should, even though all my work was done. And so she went to the other manager and complained, and because she had to sign off on my notes as a therapist. And so I'm like, okay. So when she told me, I was angry. I was frustrated, right? Because I'm doing the work. All you doing is walking around with a notepad. And so anyway, when I got home, I was like, Lord, if I'm not supposed to be on this job, please just let me know. The next day, that's why you can't do that. You got to be ready. You got to be ready. You ask him something, ask and you shall receive, right? And so I'm sitting there like, so when the girl comes in and said, oh, we need to meet, I was like, I knew what she was there for, but I was just in shock. So as she was talking to me, saying, well, we can bring you back later, I said, no, ma'am, I ain't coming back. I said, so wherever y'all sending me, they send me to another facility, and that's where I'll be. And so it made me realize we ask God for things, but we don't want to hear the answer, right?
Absolutely. We don't want to hear the answer, or when we hear the answer, we're not ready to be obedient to the answer. That's the key. Okay, so we've heard it, but now once we've heard it, are we willing to be obedient and move in it? And oftentimes the answer is no. We will question, oh, was that really God? That was just me. That wasn't God. God wouldn't tell me to do anything crazy like that. You know, why would God have me, why would God have me leave a career that I went to school for X amount of years and took it? No, God wouldn't do that. But God had already told me 2 or 3 years ago that there was going to be a shift right in that same office. And I was like, that's not God speaking to me. So you are absolutely right. He will let you know. He will warn you. He will tell you. He will show you. And when it's time, we still won't be ready. That's just our human nature. You know, that's the nature of who we are. But that's why it's so great to be able to have an organization like Success Women's Conference and be able to have mentors and people who will inspire and people who will hold people accountable, so that when God gives that download and they're a little shaky, there's a support system around them that will help them to move in what it is that God has for them. That is so important, particularly for women, because we spend so much time supporting and doing for everyone else that we forget there's something that we're supposed to be doing also.
Yeah, it is. It's really important. Being a part of a tribe is important to women anyway. We tend to thrive off getting feedback. It helps us with our decisions and things. Men don't necessarily feel they need that. And so they will make decisions, whether it's alone or on their, sheer determination. And so for women, it's really empowering for us to know that we're around like-minded people who act the same. And I often say, for me, one other thing that God gave me inside of dealing with conferences is making sure to look for people who are not of him, right? And so that's the other part that you think you're gonna get away from, and you're not. So when I'm recruiting speakers, I remember in 2019, I was screening the speakers after my team. And so we had so many applications, like 700, had to cut them down to 400. And, my team members were falling off because it was just too much work. And so when they screened them, God was like, you need to screen them again. And again, I was like, I don't have time. It's like 400 people. And I'm like, is this really God? So I'm just sitting here like, okay, I'm going to go through and screen the people. And then I found, and one of the speakers, polished, looked well, talk. I viewed her videos and everything. Couldn't figure out why he kept having me go right back to that application. She was a psychic. And he was like screening her out. And I was like, oh, there it is. It was on the application. You'd have thought I'd have saw it the first time. And so it's like, I'm like, well, I guess this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So literally from every conference since then, I've had tarot card readers that I've had to catch. One was during our conference, other conference, one on fire. And he literally, it's Christmas. And I'm going through applications because there's a tarot card reader in the group. And so I'm thinking, Lord, is this you? Because I don't see it. And then he showed it to me. I said, oh, I guess, yeah, this. So there are reasons why we're put in charge of certain things and gifted in certain things and required to use those gifts. And for me, I believe that part of our job is to protect our tribe. It is, yes. I will not knowingly expose my people to something that is not of him. That we will not do.
That's critical, which is why, like your other business, it has grown and has been successful because you've been a good steward over what God has given to you. Mm-hmm. And God will definitely bless it and allow you to move forward and allow you to grow in that. So we found out a little bit about your conference experience, about the business, but as if that wasn't enough, she is, I don't know how many books you've written, but I believe she's like a 14-time bestseller author as well.
Yeah, #1 bestseller author.
#1 best-selling author, 14 times.
Yes, I told somebody, I said, look, y'all, there is a difference between #1 and bestseller. So keep that in mind. So when I'm on an anthology, my goal is to help all of us become #1. So I actually, so let me just clarify here, y'all. It is very hard for me to focus enough and deliver a chapter. My brain just likes to do a lot of different things, and so it takes me probably longer than most people who love to write. That's just not me. But obviously, God has me on a mission because after 2019 success. God gave me, because I asked him. Remember, I said, ask and you shall receive, but be ready. And so I asked him, I said, I just feel a little unfulfilled. What can I do? And he told me to go back to planning your own events, not giving up success, just planning your own events as well. Thus came Power Up. And then he gave me book anthologies. And I was like, well, he definitely must be talking to the wrong servant. He gotta be, because I don't even care about writing like that. And so, but then he sent me somebody to push me and then tell me and encourage me, you can do it. Many people, all this stuff, da, 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 da. I was like, this girl has lost her mind. And so, but it wasn't about me. It was for me to create thus another platform for people to share their message. It was so these women that became a part of Trailblazers Who Lead One, some of them had never wrote a story. Some of them had and had never been visible. It's like, oh, I didn't even know you did that. You do this. And, I'm like, I can't believe I'm reading your story. I didn't know you did this and that and this and that. And it made me realize that my job was to push them out to the front using, my skills of setting up interviews and finding places for them to share their message beyond the book. The book is a platform, so it's a great way for them to share. But then you have to take that to podcasts like yours and TV shows and radio shows and all that, magazines. So many of these women had never been in none, zero, nothing. And so we were able to do that and leverage it. And thus comes all these women now with podcasts, radio. Some of them had podcasts and radio shows, and they didn't even use them. They were just, oh, yeah, I have one. I'm like, well, are you using them? I could bring the authors on. Oh, okay, we can do that. Now they're blowing up their shows and stuff. They've started their own magazines. They've started other businesses. They do their own conferences. And of course, they're hosting and doing their own anthology as a visionary as well. So I just, he gave me that. And then followed by that was Make It Happen. So Make It Happen, I was like, okay, I've sat on that title for 15 to 17 years now. And so when I decided, I said, okay, this is the title. So I had it written down the last time. I said, but this is the title. And then I had a person sign up, and then it just sat there. It just literally sat there for months. And I said, Lord, is this the right title? I started doubting. I said, I don't know if this is the right title. So literally, Gwen, I was sitting on social media early in the morning, which I'm rarely early morning person, right? So I get up and I was just thinking, is this the right title? He sends it right across the screen, and he shall make it happen. Isaiah 60:22. And so I go on my phone and Google, and there it is. I said, okay, Lord, it gives me chills. And he started sending the people. So I was like, okay. So when God tells you to do something and puts you on a mission, you just have to be obedient, even if it doesn't look the way you think it should look. It is his purpose that he has for you. And there's a reason why he's telling you to do something. So that is really my journey with the anthologies. Now we're working on Trailblazers Who Lead 2, which will be coming out shortly this month. And then Undefeated, 100 women sharing the stories of winning. That's another one that I've just kind of set on. And I'm like, I need to do something different. So that's kind of what he gave me with my team. My team helped me out on some titles and stuff this time as well. But I just, like I said, I normally write a chapter in a night when I finally sit down to write it, but it becomes a struggle for me to get it to the visionary.
Wow, it's a few things we have in common. I actually don't mind writing. I actually enjoy writing. I've always enjoyed writing, but because of my schedule, I often find it difficult to find that quiet time where I can just focus in on the writing. And so for me, it is sort of like that too. It's like, okay, you got to discipline yourself now. And I'll sit and I literally can go through 15, 20 pages with no problem. Once I get there, I'm going and I don't want to stop. But for me, it's just the time to really sit down and get it on paper, sit down and start typing it up. But just because you're not actually sitting and typing it or writing it doesn't mean that you're not preparing for it, is what I tell people. Because in my mind, the story is already being played out a million different ways. I'm already getting clarity. I know a lot of people struggle with that when they're writing. It's like, well, I haven't been able to sit down. Sometimes I'll just write one little sentence or one little thought that will come to me, in a journal. Do that, because then when you go to write, you can bring all of this stuff together and it flows a lot easier.
Yeah.
So yes, the anthologies, that's really, it's really good. I just believe in the power of people's testimonies and stories to be able to inspire others. But also, when you tell your story and share your testimony, it is also healing and therapeutic for you. Something happens when you're able to share that story that you weren't able to share for years. It's so empowering to be able to say, you know what, it's out there. It's no longer a secret. I no longer have to worry about someone finding out, because you've shared it and you've shared it the way you wanted to share it. And it's very empowering when you're able to do that.
It really is. And I tell people, when you think about it, when you really, really think about it, you have 40 plus stories you can easily share in anybody's anthology. I just tell people I'm too young to write a life story, write a whole book. And so I love sharing pieces of my story because it enables others to gain from the experience that we've gone through. And then the other thing is you're being obedient, because God requires you to give testimony. He requires you to share. I mean, he used the Israelites coming out of Egypt on purpose. He said it. It's in the scriptures, because he was making sure people knew that it was him. He was bringing them out. God don't need us to get any kind of glory. But what you do, and when you give your testimony, you are allowing God to get the glory. And look, rightfully so, because let's face it, everything that we do is because he allows us to, right? Or he gives us the opportunity to do it. So what better thing to do is to share where you've been and how you've come through, and now how you benefited from it, whether it was a pain source, but yet you're still here. So it means you have a purpose. And so it is our duty, it is our requirement to share your story. You hear people say all the time, your story ain't your story. It wasn't never meant for you. It was meant for somebody else, so somebody else can grow. They're waiting for you. And now with the pandemic we're in, we're all tuned in on the World Wide Web, right? So somebody around the globe is waiting to hear your story. Not, you can have the same story as the person sitting next to you, but it's coming from your mouth. So it's that message they need to hear. They may get saved. You may save somebody's life. But from you, that story needs to be shared. You have to share your story or stories.
Or stories, right? Exactly. Because, like you said, we all have a million stories that we could share. We just don't think that. I think sometimes we undervalue our own stories, and so we don't feel that it's worthy of being shared. But it is worthy of being shared. Like I said, that story that you have, there's someone out there that needs to hear that, because when they hear it, it's going to have an impact on their life.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So no matter how small it is,
That's
it's
right.
important. It is definitely important to someone else. So if someone was interested in participating in this upcoming anthology, how would they be able to do that?
So we do have a website for it, undefeatedwomen.com. That's one. You can also just go to my website, kerncherry.com, and you can find pretty much most of my stuff there. the Undefeated Women, Trailblazers, all of those, including my conferences, Level Up and Power Up as well. But always currentcherry.com, you can find pretty much any of my stuff. You want to join, you want to be one of those 100 women, the time is now to share your story.
The time is now. Mm-hmm. So before we wrap up, is there any other things that you have coming up? I know you have the Success Women's Conference is coming up relatively soon. I believe are you still looking for speakers for that as well?
So we're looking for, so I recruit all year, y'all. So know that I do enough conferences that I can recruit all year long. So Level Up Summit is, you can go to levelup.com. That conference is March the 25th through the 27th, mostly virtual with a little hybrid in it. We are looking for speakers right now. And so you can go there and sign up to be a speaker. You can send an interest form, whatever, will follow up with you. There's Power Up Summit, powerup.com, powerupsummit.com. And we'll be doing that July the 27th through the 31st this year. And we will be looking for speakers. You can go there as well. Success will be late September. So look for that. We moved it forward back to where it used to be. So you can go to Success Women International, because we're international now.com, and you can go there as well. And then I also have my client. I always love promoting Dr. Karen Hill Prudent. Her conference is coming up in October, late October. Sister Leaders with an S conference.com. You'll find her recruiting there as well. So like I said, I'm always recruiting. It's just like part of my gift that I work in. And I love helping people get on stages, be seen, get visible, y'all. I also have some coaching programs, so you can go to my currentcherry.com. But you can find me on almost anywhere under Current Cherry or Kern Crockett Cherry on Facebook, Twitter. Y'all, I love Clubhouse. For y'all introverts, yes, Clubhouse. LinkedIn is a must, especially for career people, especially during the great resignation that we're going on. So look for me on any of the social medias. I'm always happy to connect.
Now the question for you, is Power Up virtual as well?
But Power Up will be virtual with more in person as well this year. So it'll be more of a hybrid. So will Success be more of a hybrid this year. But I love doing virtual because we just have so many people, y'all, from Africa, New Zealand, all these places. And so I got to have my international people on the platform.
Yes. Yeah, virtual does give you the opportunity to literally draw from all over the world. That is the great thing about it. You know, hey, let's be real. As people who do events, we know that having to fly someone in and hotel expenses and all of that can be pretty costly. So the fact that we have the opportunity now to do things virtually, it just makes it a whole lot easier for us to be able to bring people from all over the world. Now, where will Power Up take place? Will that take place?
Yeah, so Power Up, Success, Level Up, all that's in Biloxi. It will be in Biloxi, the Mississippi Gulf Coast. We are 1 hour from New Orleans, y'all. So I always tell people, if you're smart, you plan that little vacation, because you know we have 11 casinos in Biloxi alone and beaches, okay? And then you can just drive that 1 hour to New Orleans and let's face it, everything's over there. Or you can go 2 hours and go to Florida, Destin, and their beaches are way better than ours. That's all I can say. Beautiful. We are really in a great location. Sister Lita, as far as my client, she's in DC area. So I'm not sure what she's doing this year, but it will be up in that area if she's doing her hybrid.
Okay, sounds good. So before we close out, there's a quote that you like to share. I want you to close out with that quote?
Oh, yes. So I often tell people, and I say this because a lot of times we get stuck on the fact that people won't let us participate in something. You're looking to be a part of something and you're frustrated, and you thought you were invited, or you just see it as an opportunity. So you knocking on that door, right? Just knocking. Nobody answers, so you go to the next door. That's why I tell people, go to the next door. And you knocking, oh, they're not letting me. Let me go around the back, right? I always say you might even have a plate of cookies. And maybe you look in and you see people, you can see in the window, they just having a great time, but they're not answering the door for you, right? Well, I often say, go back around front, kick that door in, or do even better, create your own. Don't let anybody stop you. You are given enough gifts that you can create anything. So I encourage you, become unstoppable. Don't let any roadblocks hinder you. Hear people talk about pivoting. Yes, pivot right around, but create your own opportunities. So that's what I want to leave you with, because you are given the gifts. And if you're not sure what they are, ask and you shall receive. But remember, closed mouths don't get fed.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on, for sharing about all the things that you do, all the things that you've done, the business, the whole ministry side to this. Because as you speak, I realize that this is more than business; it's a ministry. It is you doing exactly what it is that God has called you to do, to be able to have an impact on the kingdom. And so, I thank you for what you do, because in the short amount of time that I've known you, I know that you've had an impact on, create your own door kind of mentality. So I thank you for all that you do. Again, you can check her out on all the platforms under Kern Crockett Cherry or Kern Cherry. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I have a question for you. Are you tired of being stuck? Are you tired of year after year making goals and plans to accomplish something and it just doesn't seem to happen? Are you tired of not being supported in your dreams and your goals and your vision? Well, I have an opportunity for you. I want you to consider becoming a member of Success Arise Academy. This is a membership that is designed with you in mind. It provides education, inspiration, and transformation for you to be able to achieve those goals and become everything it is that God has created you to be. This is a membership program designed for women to be able to also come together and encourage and support one another. So if this sounds like something that you're looking to be a part of, I want you to visit www.successarise.com, because it is time for you to move from stuck to unstoppable. New shows coming to Kingdom Purpose TV.